What's up, everyone? So in this video today, we are going to be discussing who is it that collection companies work for. You may have asked yourself this question at some point in time, mainly because a collection company has contacted you about a debt that's with a totally different company from themselves. So you may not recognize the collection company, but they may call you and say, hey, do you recognize the debt from a RBC or BMO? And that's the account that you recognize, right? So who is it that they work for? Do they work for the banks? Do they work for another company? Do they work for themselves? Who is it that they work for? Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Kenny Johnson. I'm located here in Montreal, Quebec. I operate a credit repair company that is nationwide. So that's from province to province. We have clients in every province, and we help Canadians fix their credit, rebuild their credit so they can go back out into the marketplace and acquire credit and kind of get a fresh start. Now, if you want to contact my team, you can email us info@kennyjohnsonuniversity.com. But just to go ahead, let's jump right into the video. Now, it's important that we understand how is it that collection companies actually operate. Now, there's one way that we can look at how collection companies get their debt, and that's through the contract side of the business. So let's just say, for example, you had a debt with RBC, and that account became delinquent, and it became charge off or a charged off account, which means it was written off. Instead of RBC tossing that account aside, they may contract a collection company to contact you and then collect on the debt. So RBC still has ownership over that debt, but let's just say they made an agreement with the collection company. Hey, collection company, if you're able to get Bob to pay back on this debt, we'll give you 10% of whatever the closing amount is, right? So that's one way that a collection company can generate income for their business, okay? Or they can just have a flat rate that they charge to these companies. They can just charge a flat rate. Let's just say they do X amount per contract for the debt, which means that it would have to be worthwhile or worth the bank's while for them to actually hire a collection company um, to go ahead and go after the debt. If the debt's extremely large, then the bank can always sue you. They always reserve that right. But in most situations, most institutions understand that it's extremely expensive to go through the full litigation process. So they rather go through contracting a collection company, but keep in mind that, and this depends and varies on the province that you live in, that there's a statute of limitation on debt, and that varies from province to province. But that creditor that you had that debt with that went delinquent, they reserve the right to sue you in the event that you fail to pay your debt. Okay, so keep that in mind. But a lot of situations, the debt isn't large enough for them to go through that full litigation process. So you'll see this very commonly with small debts, such as, let's say we had a credit card that was $1,000, right? And let's say the individual maxed out the credit card. This is very common in these situations where the debt is extremely small. But if you see larger debts, let's just say 20K, so on and so forth, 10K, so on and so forth, then that institution that you owe money to, they may actually consider seeking litigation because then it may be worth their while, right? Because again, at the end of the day, that's money that you may owe them. You signed off on that debt, so there's an agreement there. So just to kind of go back to the purpose or to the point that I'm trying to make is that the collection company at one point they can work for the bank that you owe money to or the institution that you owe money to. This is very common in the real estate space, right? So when you get a place to rent, you sign a lease, and if you fail to make payments for X amount of months, and then you decide to move on, you leave. Don't just think that that debt disappears, right? That landlord can always contract a collection company to get to you and to get that debt back, right? And this is actually a lot more affordable for a landlord because most landlords they're quote unquote small business owners, so they may not want to go through the litigation process themselves. So they're a lot more comfortable contracting a collection company on their behalf to go after that debt. So from a business standpoint, it's extremely smart, especially if the debt is a small amount, to just contract a collection company to collect on debt on your behalf. So collection companies can work for or be contracted by the original creditor. They can also act independently. And in this situation, they may have purchased the debt. Okay, so let's just say it's a debt that's past the statute of limitations. We both know that, or the parties know that there's really no case for litigation because, again, it's past the statute of limitations. They may just go ahead and sell that debt off because it's not worth their time. So they get the tax write off and then they're able to recoup a bit of that money that they lost with the consumer that decided not to pay the debt. Now, in this instance, the collection company has full ownership of this debt. So, ownership of the debt has been passed over. And then from that point, they get basically all the information that they can from the original creditor. So, this is why when you get called by the collection company, they have so much information already on you. Because if they were contracted, they're going to get that information to be able to do their job. And B, if they purchase the debt, they're going to get that information at the sell date. Now, one caveat I do like to mention is that if the debt's extremely old, it's really hard for them to recover a lot of that information because these are contracts that you signed from a long time ago, right? So a lot of times collection companies do have a hard time collecting on that debt. So they can act independently where they go out, they purchase that debt, and then they're able to make a profit. Now, when they purchase the debt, they're purchasing for a small percentage, a fraction of what you owe the original creditor, and they're going to get you to pay back in full what you owe. And so they use a lot of scare tactics to get consumers to pay the debt that they owe. So this can be a very lucrative business if you know how to go about things because most consumers don't know how the credit process works or what happens at the sell date. So a lot of people get taken advantage of by collection companies. So at the first instance, we have a collection company that can be contracted. And then on the other side, we have a collection company that could be acting independently to where they either purchase the debt or they don't even own the debt and they just saw the information on a third party platform and decided to contact on you or contact you about the debt in order to get a pay, right? So now that third situation I kind of want to zoom in on because it's extremely important. So it's not uncommon for a collection company to contact you about a debt that does exist, but they don't own the debt, which means that they don't have the rights to get you to pay that debt, right? So again, if they were contracted, they can contact you. If they purchase the debt, they can contact you and get you to pay off on that debt, right? But they need to be so in the second instance, if they purchase that debt, they need to be able to provide you with proof of debt. This is and again, this is a law that's put into place to protect the consumer, and this is to stop collection companies from being able to just call anybody and say, "Hey, you need to pay us this debt," and then take your money, and then nothing changes on your credit profile. There's no updates made, so all of these things are put into place to protect the consumer at the end of the day. But it's also there to make sure that consumers are able to be held accountable for the debt that they do have. It's just important that collection companies are going about things the right way. So when we have those accounts that they purchased and the original creditor no longer owns the debt, then as a consumer, you have to go and be wise enough to say, hey, well, provide me with that proof of debt, and then I'll be able to move forward. I would be more than happy to be able to move forward. Maybe you negotiate a pay for deletion to where you pay the account off in full, and in return, that account's going to get removed off of your credit report. Okay. So those are things that you can do if they're able to provide you proof of debt. But if they are not able to provide you with proof of debt, and the two instances may have happened. They never got that. They never got that proof of debt when they purchased the debt from the original creditor, or they just used a third-party platform to gather your information to contact you, and they're just trying to make a quick buck, right? And I know it sounds kind of sleazy, but that's just the business. That's the business in the collection space. Anyone that has worked in the collection business, um, and again, it employs a lot of people. They will tell you that it's kind of suspect, if I could say, right? So again, they use a lot of predatory tactics to get you to pay back on debt without even providing the consumer with proof of debt. And essentially, the people that you're speaking to over the phone is essentially like a sales rep for the business, right? So they're just making calls all day, following up, a lot of times harassing, violating consumer laws to contact you, the consumer, to get you paid back on that debt, right? So the more that you understand and that you're aware of as a consumer, the better off you are to protect yourself and to know how to navigate a collection account. So, but when we're looking at how is it or who is it that collection companies work for, we have two scenarios. They can either act independently, and they can act as a contractor for the original creditor. But it's extremely important that you're able to differentiate the two. And one of the easiest ways for you to find out is to simply look at your credit report. Now, again, I say this probably in every video, we have two credit bureaus here in Canada. We have Equifax, we have TransUnion. Okay, you need to have access to both because there's been so many situations to where a collection account can report to Equifax, but it's not reflecting over on TransUnion and vice versa, right? So once you have access to both credit reports, the first thing you should be doing is heading over to your public record section, the collection section, and making sure that there are no collection accounts in your credit report. Okay, so that means if you don't have any collection accounts in your credit report, then there's a high chance. There's no such thing as 100% in this industry. No such thing as 100% in the credit space. You will learn that if you're currently going through the credit repair process. There's no such thing as 100%. But when you go to that collection section, if you have nothing there, then no collection company, there's a high chance that no collection company has purchased that debt, right? But if they are reporting that information, that they most likely have purchased that debt from the original creditor. But if there's nothing there and you're being contacted by a collection company, then they most likely were contracted by the original creditor. One thing you can do to be safe is just to ask for proof of debt. Proof of debt is that original signed contract you signed when you signed off on the original debt. So, for example, I'm going to make an illustration for you. Let's just say you went to CIBC 5 years ago and you got a credit card from CIBC. Things were going great. Maybe COVID happened. You weren't able to make payments. That account went delinquent. So let's say 3, 6 months of you not being able to make payments on that account. CIBC then decided to close the account, write it off as a tax write-off, okay? And then they contracted a collection company to contact you about the debt. Now, when this happens, you're not going to see a collection company in the collection section of your credit report, but you're going to be getting phone calls. So you're going to be confused because you're going to say to yourself, well, how is it that a collection company is calling me, but I don't have anything in the collection section of my credit report? Well, that's because most likely CIBC has contracted this collection company to contact you. And you can always ask that collection company to provide you proof of debt, or you can call the original creditor and say, hey, I just want to resolve this. What can I do? They'll either transfer you over to the collection company, which lets you know that that's the actual collection company that they're working with, or or they'll say, hey, you can just pay this directly to us, which lets you know that they still own that debt, which is a lot better option. It's a way better option to pay the money back directly to the original creditor versus a collection company. I've seen many horror stories to where a consumer pays a collection company, and then just for them to come to find out that the debt was never satisfied by the original creditor, right? So it's very important that you do your due diligence. This can actually get very complicated. So if you're in this situation to where this all seems so confusing, it's just a bunch of information. This is why my company exists. I'm here to make things easy for you. I'm not a one-man show. I have a full team behind me. I have teammates that I can lean on to make sure that we do the best work for you, right? Trying to get that proof of debt for you, communicating with collection companies, negotiating, even if it does come back verified, can we do a pay for deletion? Things like this. So most people have a 9 to 5, they're working full time. They don't have the time to do this. And this is why this company exists. We've helped hundreds of Canadians in every province. We have clients in every province. So if you do need help, if you find yourself in this situation, send us an email, info@kennyjohnsonuniversity.com. We'll be more than happy to help you rebuild your credit if you're currently going through issues with collections. If you have concern proposals, you've been recently discharged, reach out to us. If you have a bunch of inquiries, let's say you have 20 inquiries and you need help, send us an email. We'll be more than happy to help. And until next time, take care.